everybody. We are back. It is the moment. As always, my buddy Meredith Lynch is in the house. And also, I'm so excited. My friend Kari Ferrell, we met at a Brooklyn backyard barbecue a million years ago. But like, little did I know, she's a producer, she's a writer, she's a speaker, she's an activist, she's a creator. Her work is centered around incarceration and the justice system, mental health, adoption. She does like truly like Kari puts 10 toes down. There's so many people on social media that I see that I'm like, all right, like, okay, you put something up. Kari stands 10 toes down. She teaches me so much about activism without being anti-Semitic, by the way, somehow. Like an amazing, like truly shout out to Kari. She's also the author of the new memoir, You'll Never Believe Me, A Life of Lies, Second Tries, and Other Things I Should Only Tell My Therapist. She's developing a scripted television program with Mindy Kaling right now and has all sorts of other projects in the works that we can't talk about quite yet. But basically, Kari's a fucking G, and we're so excited that she's here.
What an introduction. Thank you so much for having me on the moment. I'm like, am I just getting compliments this entire time?
Yes, the whole time.
I was a little like, where the fuck does Kari find the time? Because I barely had time to take Tylenol this morning. And so I'm like, damn, this is why I don't have Mindy Kaling projects, because I'm a fucking disorganized mess.
Oh, I'm so glad that I present as anything other than that, though, because it is not that way behind the scenes.
Well, it looks pretty good.
Thank you.
Thank you. At the moment, here's what we're talking about today. Lawmakers have started to see the unredacted Epstein files. Things are coming out. There's men whose names are starting to be redacted. We're going to talk about that, what happens next. Then Ghislaine Maxwell had the audacity to come on this internet, or I guess Congress, and ask Trump for clemency. And then we're going to talk about the Super Bowl, some of the like deeply racist aftertakes. And then speaking of racist aftertakes, we're going to be speaking with New York Times writer and TikTok creator, the brilliant Jamelle Bouie, who recently wrote about Trump and some of his racist truth socials that we're not even going to name here quite yet. So we have a packed show today.
Let's get into
light topics.
Let's get into it. Yeah, welcome to the meeting.
Because I actually, the first thing I saw when I woke up this morning was a video of Lauren Boebert talking about what she's now seen in the unredacted Epstein files. So I was like, this is,
interesting. I didn't see that. But do you want to tell me what that video is before I like go?
Well, it just was basically like, hey, they're bad. And then they asked the specific follow-up questions of regarding Ghislaine Maxwell, you know, do you think Maxwell should be out of prison? Do you and she was like, after seeing these, absolutely not. She should be in a much worse prison. And so that was sort of the takeaway. And so, I mean, I do think, and I think I saw another senator is also having a very similar reaction that I hadn't seen before, and I need to check on that one. But I guess like one of my questions when I heard that was like, I'm so glad Kari's here, because it's like, when you hear this and you hear someone go, they should be in a worse prison, what's your reaction to that?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, this is a really, it's interesting because ultimately my work and my beliefs are, toward a society where abolition is possible. Mm-hmm. I believe in, an institution that doesn't throw people behind bars just for, in any and every infraction. That being said, I'm very much an abolitionist. However, I do believe that there's a scale. I'm pragmatic about this, right? And for people who have this level of power, influence, corruption, I mean, I don't know that I would say that she deserves to be in a worse institution, because I know about the one that she's in, and it is horrible. They're all horrible, but sometimes horrible people deserve to, to be honest, it's very tricky. And especially within the community of advocates and abolitionists that I work with and that I'm friends with and whom I love, people are very split. And I understand, because it's so, the intricacies, the nuance, but we're kind of all on the same page across the board that, you know,
when it comes to Ghislaine, like
to Ghislaine, when it comes to, you know, that being said, I focus more on, you know, the everyday average citizen who is being imprisoned.
Right.
And, you know, these are not everyday regular people. And so the standards, I don't want to say that they're higher, but they're much different. And the scale, the ratio needs to follow suit, right?
And it's also like, I don't know, I feel like especially in this type of situation is like, I feel like a lot of what our prison culture is about like punishment. Like, you bad, you deserve to go away. But especially in this one, I just want to pull up so yesterday, just as a reminder, she testified in front of Congress, pleaded the fifth the whole time. Like, there's a video out there and she just pleads the fifth, like will not answer questions. Then immediately after, her lawyer puts out this statement. I think we have a clip of it. Yeah, I think we have that. And in it, she basically says like, hey, Trump, if you give me clemency, I'll come out and clear your name and President Trump's name. She basically like goes out in public to ask for a quid pro quo for both of them. Mind you, this woman has already been charged with perjury. Like, she is an adjudicated liar. And so what I was going to say is, in this situation, like, not only is it about like, hey, you deserve punishment for the horrible things you did, it's like you are still going to do more harm if you were let out of prison. You know what I mean? Like, and especially in the situation when there's this like ring of people who like clearly deserve to be in prison. Like, I feel like that's also a nuance in this case where it's like, you're still perpetrating harm. You're trying to perpetrate harm to the American people. It's not just about punishment, in my opinion, in this case.
Yeah, and I think about the harm also that's being perpetrated within the prison as far as just having her being there, because statistically, unfortunately, as we know, prisons are not designed for humans, but they're certainly not designed for women and femme-presenting people. And unfortunately, just due to the rates of, you know, sexual assault and things of that nature, a very high percentage of women who are imprisoned have experienced that. And then we're putting them in these fishbowls where the correction officers, you know, typically are men, and they're being watched and surveilled constantly. And we wonder, you know, why is this an unsafe environment? Why is this not rehabilitating? And so I think a lot about the other women who have to see her and have to be around her, and how, I mean, I know that, yeah, triggering is we throw that around a lot, but truly properly triggering to the other women who are there. Yeah, I just can't.
Also, like, here's the thing. There are people who commit crimes, and when they are, you know, released from prison, they are not going to reoffend. Ghislaine Maxwell is not that type of person. She isn't the person who, you know, got caught selling drugs or what, you know, like, things happen. Like, people commit crimes, they serve time, they get out, they build totally different lives, right? Like, and we can also get into the you know, implications of race and bond and all these kind of things that go into that. But Ghislaine Maxwell would get out, in my opinion, is she'd find a new way to keep doing what she did before, just in a different way. She's not a safe person. So my question is, do you think that she like perpetrates these kind of things in prison as well that she did in the real world?
I'm sure that, and I'm trying to think of how to say that, transferable skills, right?
Right.
And that can be used, and I'm not saying for her, but in general, that can be used very positively, right? I mean,
Totally.
after I got out of jail, I went on to become a digital marketing director. And, you know, I make the joke all the time that was just like, you know, consensual manipulation, basically. But it's like using some of the skills that I had that I was for, you know, for negative, not that advertising is like the most moral, amazing thing. Obviously, we know it's not, but it's, you know, I'm sure that she's running some of these kind of, you know, scams, and using, her stature and her notoriety to her benefit, for sure.
Let's talk about also, by the way, like there's only one person in prison right now in connection with the Jeffrey Epstein sex ring. Like there's only one person, and like Ghislaine Maxwell belongs in prison, but that one person is a woman. And now we know lawmakers have started to see these unredacted files. Just this morning, I logged on and I saw Howard Lutnick, who is in the Trump cabinet, testified in front of Congress, said he did indeed go to Jeffrey Epstein's island. You know, like like he finally, after being like, I saw this man and I was immediately turned off, and like finally he's coming forward. And so like I want to talk a little bit about these redacted Epstein files, whether we think we'll actually ever see any accountability for anybody. You know, like there's so clearly these men that are involved, at least 6 of them. I think we have a clip of Thomas Massey talking about it, and then I want to talk on the other end.
Also clear, just sort of as a checking their homework, that they need to do a little more homework. There are 6 men. We went in there for 2 hours. There's millions of files, right? And in a couple of hours, we found 6 men whose names have been redacted, who are implicated in the way that the files are presented.
Right? Like all these files that we saw that left a vacuum for conspiracy theories, they were like, we went in for 2 hours. And they had to go into the DOJ office, sit at their computers and look through the files there. And they immediately saw at least 6 men who are implicated. And none of them have had any accountability. And then I want to
what do you think that means, though? Like for our viewers, like when you hear him say there are 6 men that are implicated, what do you think that he is saying?
So like I'll give you an example, because this is, you know, like we do this early, but this morning what I saw, because now they're allowed to speak on the floor of Congress, like there's all these rules about how they can speak about it.
Right.
And from my understanding, do you remember there was an email going around about a torture video? So this is something that was happening on social media. There's an email in the files where somebody emails Jeffrey Epstein and says, like, thank you for that torture video. I loved it. I'll be in China and then I'll be in the United States. It's a disgusting thing. There was all this speculation, and like, there was all this speculation that it was Benjamin Netanyahu. It was not Benjamin Netanyahu. It was a sultan in the United Arab Emirates. It just came out.
Oh, okay.
And that name, the sender, had been redacted. And so all these people are like, oh, thank you, Vienna. Man, Vienna is the freaking...
Vienna is on it. She's on it.
Vienna is the GOAT. But yeah, this is the email. This was going around the internet. And because it had been redacted, there's all of this room for conspiracies. And again, like, I have no love lost for Netanyahu, but like, this wasn't Netanyahu, right? This was a sultan. And like, why did the DOJ redact his name? He's not a survivor. He's clearly a perpetrator. And so we're only now just starting to get who those 2s are. And I also want to play. Oh, go ahead, Kari. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just have a question because I'm not familiar with all of the legalities around redaction. But is it I mean, I'm sure there's criteria and things, but is it also that they get to sort of pick and choose?
Yeah.
Is that what's happening?
That's basically what they're saying, is that the DOJ just sort of like arbitrarily, they didn't redact certain names of survivors, identifiable information, but they did redact this sultan's name in the files. And so I think there's 2 questions here. One, how do we hold accountable the people and by hold accountable, I mean, like, do the bare minimum investigation of these men? And 2, and they're talking to Pam Bondi on Wednesday about this, why is the DOJ obfuscating? What are they obfuscating? And I think that there's a case there too.
I mean, the one thing I'll say, like to Kari's thing that she just said, and then even my previous question is like, you almost have to have taken like an advanced law class to
Right.
figure out what's, I'm not saying you've had to go to law school, but to figure out what's going on in the news right now, very basic, is so
Yep.
incredibly confusing. Like, why is this redacted? Why isn't that redacted? Like, what does that mean when they say they're implicated? I'm picturing Ro Khanna and Thomas Massey, like me in like 6th grade when I'd have to go to the library to work on a project and like use
Like
the
literally,
computer.
that's it. Yeah.
But like
Yeah.
it's to me, I think that one of the things that all of these people thought is like, we are so wealthy. We've made this so confusing that no matter whatever fucking happens, no one's going to take, the average American is never going to take the time to understand this, because at the same time, they're getting billed, you know, $2,000 for a medical procedure that was $200 last year. So like that to me is part of it.
Period.
Well, and that's, I mean, with the carceral state in general, that's also, I mean, the judicial system overall, that's what they bank on, right? Is people's inability to understand. And that's, you know, a lot of my work is sort of around what constitutes a scam, right? Because at this point, we call people grifters, scammers, if we disagree with them. But ultimately, for me, my definition is it's when an institution or a group of people, a person is taking advantage of someone in a way that they have no control over, right? Like there's no world in which the average citizen will ever be able to have the education and knowledge of or time.
Right. That's the other piece.
And it's so, you know, I mean, I think that it's also how we consume the media. I don't have to wax poetic about that for very long. I'm sure everyone agrees, but it's like, I know a lot of people who are getting the bulk of their information from hot takes of hot takes. It's like people of hot takes of hot takes. And it's 100%. Like, okay, that's how information is disseminated, you know, sure. But also the trickle down effect and the chaos that comes from not looking at the source. But then again, when the source is so confusing, why would anyone go there?
Why would anyone? First? Yeah, like the amount of people that I saw, and again, this is not to say like Israel has connections to the Epstein files. Like this is not to say that it doesn't, but the amount of people that I saw that took this email with the redactions and made this, like implanted the Israel-Palestine conflict onto it, when in fact it was about somebody in the United Arab Emirates, like it leaves this vacuum for like going down the wrong rabbit holes. And then it takes away from like the actual accountability and the actual interweb of these complicated things. And I think it just leaves space for everybody to ignore the reality that there are like a bunch of survivors who got trafficked by the world's most powerful men who are still in power and have to like go through this day after day after day after day. Like it's so sick. Should we talk about the Super Bowl before we talk about Jamelle on a lighter note?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Super Bowl has been this really interesting thing that I just saw this video that my nemesis Bethany Frankel did that she then since deleted, and I am going to talk about it later today. But I think it's worth talking about for a second because basically her whole thing is like, you know, I'm going to get canceled for this, but where's the line? Where's the line in what makes something political and why? And she's like, you know, on Mark and Kelly, they can't talk about things like this. They can't talk about politics. And I'm like, okay, bitch, who's watching Mark and Kelly or Kelly and Mark? Yeah, like no one's fucking, no offense, Kelly Ripa, no one's watching that. Okay. So first of all, there's that. Second of all, the other thing that I
also how long before they do make it political that she's married to a Latino man, you know what I mean? Like,
well, they've gone along this long. I don't think it's happening. But here's my thing to Bethany Frankel. Bethany, I thought you were the fucking genius businesswoman. And last week on this show, we had Megan Gailey on, who has worked for the NFL and knows a lot about all of this. And she said to us, she said, money. That is why the NFL had Bad Bunny. They know it is an investment. They know it will make them money. They know it will expand the league, blah, blah, blah. So I guess like my thought is like some of you are discounting how capitalistic the NFL is.
Go ahead, Kari.
Oh, sorry, Rebecca. I was just going to say that It was the most patriotic I have maybe ever felt watching the halftime show. That being said, though, I did, from the moment that it was announced, think about the metrics that the NFL was, everyone's applauding them. And honestly, yes, I'm so glad that they made the decision.
Right.
It wasn't just Bad Bunny, it was also Green Day, but they have the data, they have the metrics of their demographics, and they're realizing, oh, guess what? It's not just, it's not just white
People
English
in Puerto Rico,
speakers
yeah,
who
yeah.
watch the Super Bowl. Like the amount of money that they're making off of, I guess let's just say marginalized communities, that's ultimately the reason that Bad Bunny was put in this platform. But again, I'm so glad that he was, and what an incredible show. But that's, to your point, Meredith, not to discount the real reason they're not doing it out of the kindness of their hearts.
But didn't it give you, like, that gave me real hope when because I like,
Yes.
I watched, but I was like, oh, if the NFL sees Brandy Carlisle, a rainbow insignia on the field, Bad Bunny, Green Day, if they see all of these things as profitable, that means that, like, there is a mainstream American audience for that, which means that maybe we'll magically vote ourselves out of this, which is something that Jamelle Bouie talks about a lot. The integrity of our elections.
Good timing.
Transition, a little shaky, but I'm really excited because Jamelle Bouie does something really special. So he's a columnist for the New York Times. He covers history, he covers politics. He also is all over TikTok. He does this amazing job of talking to a totally different audience, which is something that I want to talk to him about. Previously, he was the chief political correspondent at Slate. Has written for the American Prospect, the Daily Beast, our friends over there, co-host the podcast Unclear and Present Danger. Jamelle Bouie, do we have you on the show?
Yeah, I'm here. Hello.
Welcome. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you for having me.
We wanted to start, there's so much to talk about here with you, as we said, but I wanted to start with a story that's like a little bit died down, but maybe not died down. You wrote in the New York Times this week an article called "This is Just Who Trump Is." After Just Who Trump Is, President Trump posted a really, truly blatantly disgusting video of President and former First Lady Barack and Michelle Obama as apes. And you pointed out that, the White House started with their lib tears, but then it slowly got into the Republican thought process. I was particularly surprised by Tim Scott, who is a Black man, Republican representative, who's been very behind Trump. All of this to say is, why do you think this seems to have broken through, or has it?
I think it has broken through in so much as that, regular people are aware of it. But I think the big thing is it's just so blatant, I think I said the piece that portraying Black people as apes or primates or something is a very old racist trope. And it's a very old racist trope. It's immediately recognizable to people as oh yeah, that's a racist thing to do. Yeah. And so doing that, not just about any set of Black people, but Barack and Michelle Obama, who are among the most popular political figures in the country.
Right.
It's, and the president's already unpopular. It made total sense to me that this should be the thing that Tim Scott, who leads the National Republican Senatorial Committee, right? He's attuned to the status of Republican candidates for office. It makes sense to me that this should be the thing that would lead them to be you know what, you should take this down. You should probably rethink this. I'll say that the point I make in that piece, though, is that somehow everyone's forgotten that Donald Trump's entrance into the national political stage was accusing Barack Obama of not having been born in the United States solely on account of his African background, right? On account of his race. And I think that when I saw the clip, and I gotta say, I'm really not enjoying this thing, especially with this year in the Trump administration, where I wake up in the morning and the first thing I'm hit with is something insane. It happened with the Venezuela attack too. I wake up Saturday morning and it's oh, we've attacked Venezuela and kidnapped Maduro. Let me actually call my literal editor to make sure this is real, because it seems too insane to be real. Anyway, the president comparing the Obamas to apes is totally it's totally in line with how just like his public behavior over the last 15 years. And so part of me when I saw it was like, yeah, of course, of course, of course. Why would we expect anything otherwise?
Yeah, why is anyone surprised by any of this?
Yeah.
Which is so unfortunate. But that's the thing that as news keeps coming out, it's like, you see these Republicans, these conservatives in my America. Yes, in your fucking America. Like what America have you been living
More
in?
America.
Like if anything, unfortunately, this is actually the most American thing to be taking. I mean, yeah, it's just absolutely wild.
Do you think, though, that this creates a month from now any type of continued discourse? Because, I think about the things that I've seen Trump say and do, and slowly everyone's sort of kind of, even people who are offended by something seem to get amnesia about it.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to create any discourse in the future. I mean, I think what it does, politically speaking, is it just adds to this sense of things are out of control in the White House, right? The chaos in Minnesota, the chaos abroad, like all these things add to this sense that just things are out of control. And I think that if you're looking at where the administration is politically, what it's suffering from is this very clear delta between its promise in the 2024 election, which is that the world is chaotic and Trump will bring it under control. And the reality, right, is that like actually bringing Trump into power makes things even more chaotic. So although I don't think this will be any there's not going to be any particular political moment that comes out of this a month from now or months from now, I do think it continues to add to this sense that, what's Washington is just like buck wild. It's like wild and out. And there's no one attempting to do the things that I think voters wanted out of Trump, which was lower cost, turn on the money spigot again, like that kind of thing.
I'm so curious as to all of your thoughts on just the entertainment value aspect of all of this, because yes, it is chaotic and it's horrible. However, we're all so hypnotized by it, right? And what is that doing to us? And is that in a way, benefiting the far right and all of these white nationalists? Like, I really, I'm just so curious. And I don't know if it can be simplified into a response, but
no. I mean, so it's clear that the president's view is that all publicity is good publicity, but I don't actually think that's true. Like, I just don't think that. I do not think that the public, Americans, want out of government constant like stimulation, right? Like constant sort of someone trying to make you react or feel some sort of way. Now, I don't think they want total disconnection either. I think that was the mistake of the Biden administration, but they want a president to be a presence, but they don't want the president to be kind of like the focal point of cultural life around which everything revolves. And I actually think that the president's constant efforts to insert himself into everything. Like, why is the president giving statements about a Super Bowl halftime show? Who gives a shit, right? Like,
which, by the way, you watched it, President Trump. You admit you watched it. I was like, okay. He was like, it was no good. I hated it. And it's like, okay, well, I guess
I'm like, this is the best cosign for Benito, right? You're like,
right.
Rock was down a fan, I guess. Like, we see what you were watching. Sorry to interrupt you.
No worries. But like George W. Bush wasn't talking about the Justin Timberlake, Janet Jackson mishap. There wasn't like some presidential
Maybe he
statement
should
the next
have.
day. Maybe you should have. Maybe you should have. But so the extent to which Trump is just ever present and ubiquitous, I think just makes people are tired of it. They don't like it. And I really do think that what the maybe critical voters who delivered him in the White House imagined in 2024 is that it would go back to what they thought 2019 was like, which was, every so often he sends a crazy tweet, but then more or less, he's like managing the economy well. Now, that wasn't the case, but that's how I think Trump ended up cashing out in memory. And I don't think anyone was really signing up for, I can't turn on the TV, I can't open up my phone without having to hear this guy who's clearly deranged, ranting about something crazy, and it just wears people out.
Now that
the
I think about
incessant
it,
onslaught.
do you think this is part of why Megyn Kelly is doing such a crash out over Bad Bunny? Like to crash out the president, to be like, yes, we are this outraged about a racial pushback in America. Like I've been watching her specifically because like she used to be like like not my cup of tea, but like a smart woman. And to see her like really crash out over this, do you think that's like part of her strategy here?
Maybe. I mean, Megyn Kelly. So when I think about Megyn Kelly, I think about years ago when a colleague of mine at Slate wrote a piece about how Santa Claus didn't have to be white; it just didn't matter. And Megyn Kelly had like a whole segment that was like, Santa Claus is white.
Just like Jesus.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah.
So that when I think about Megyn Kelly, I do think about someone who's maybe inclined to crash out over stupid stuff. What I think is that the administration, its allies, I think a lot of people in the press, frankly, a lot of elite commentators, they read 2024 in that election as not just a political victory for the president, but a decisive cultural victory for MAGA.
Yeah.
And I think what is clear, and what the Bad Bunny performance makes clear, but so many things have made clear, is that it wasn't. I think there's a lot of evidence that it wasn't a particularly decisive political win either, but it certainly wasn't a decisive cultural victory. It wasn't Americans saying, we want Kid Rock, right? It wasn't Americans saying, yes, we don't want to be able to eat at Mexican restaurants anymore. Like, it wasn't any of that. And I think someone like Megyn Kelly is crashing out over the recognition that no, winning one election doesn't all of a sudden make you the cultural masters of the United States. And in fact, the manner in which this administration conducts itself has probably done more than anything to reinvigorate the kind of cultural wins that were pushing against the first Trump administration, in which people had gotten a little tired of, right? Like there's people online talk about woke 2, like woke being back, and being
Woke
somewhat
squared.
different than woke 1.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, woke 2, woke harder, woke 2, woke strikes back. What else? Woke 2 in the Temple of Doom. I mean, we can kind of
we can keep going.
We can keep going.
And the files, woke 2 in the redacted.
Woke 2 unredacted. That's pretty good.
Unredacted.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. But the point is just that that the cultural environment is not with MAGA, is not with the administration, is not with its allies. That in fact, the cultural changes that conservatives hate weren't the product of some nefarious conspiracy. They were like organic changes that happened in the society. And simply winning an election isn't enough to turn the clock back. And I think that's probably in some subconscious way what Megyn Kelly is crashing out about.
I mean,
You brought up
I'm so sorry, Meredith.
No, that's okay. You brought up 2019. And I think that's something I think about a lot. It's like a special interest of mine. Is like, have you given any thought to how much of what we're experiencing right now is because we went through this collective trauma of COVID, and have we processed it at all?
Yeah, I mean, so when you look at the Spanish flu of the 1918, 1919, and then the aftermath of that, there was a little bit of American society coming a bit unglued. And I don't know if anyone's made this like connection academically, but it certainly is like striking that among the things you see happen in the subsequent years is like the reinvigoration of the Ku Klux Klan, which ends up being this like mass organization that is actually like quite familiar, feels quite familiar to maybe certain variations on like MAGA, right?
Right.
I think there is something to the country experienced this terrible trauma where many people died, unacknowledged, often by the government, and it's an attempt to kind of like pretend like it didn't happen, and that takes all kinds of different forms. I think one form it took was sort of like mentally erasing the experience of the first Trump administration so that Trump
Yeah.
somehow reemerges as like this weird kind of like wacky uncle figure, and not someone who was like previously the president of the United States for whom we have like a clear record of how he behaved. But I think all sorts of things are likely shaped by just this trauma response, this sort of sublimated anger and frustration from the pandemic years.
Yeah.
I mean, it turns into basically like the real White House wives of, DC, right? Where it's like that also brought us to a place where now we have, RFK. It's just such a it's a fugue state, I feel, that we all went into. And then Meredith, like you said, I don't feel like I had time to process. And it is this collective trauma where it's like, oh, great. Well, now at least, it's a great small talk conversation because we all went through this thing, right? Like,
well, and I think we got addicted to chaos a little bit.
Yes,
like, I think there was a bit of, that time, I'm not saying COVID's not still happening. It is. It's still, everyone be safe out there. But that time period of like March through, the holidays was collective chaos. And so I think chaos got really mainstream normalized. And I think that's like part of why Trump gets to come back in and be 10 times more chaotic than he was before.
And the internet got so much. I know this is like the internet, but like everybody ended up on TikTok. We ended up like scrolling through everything. And speaking of which, I just want to like end with this because I think like part of what I find fascinating about you, Jamelle, is like you're both like in the milieu of like the most mainstreamy legacy media place, and also like deeply TikTok, like speaking to people who, like, no offense, hate the New York Times, like hate legacy media,
They tell me it all the time.
I know. I see you do it, and like I don't know. There's 6 million questions that I have about this, but especially going into 2026, as like maybe we will magically vote ourselves out of this thing. Uh-oh. What do you see about the internet? Like what are you seeing on TikTok with the young people that they aren't quite getting, and vice versa, like that the mainstream and like the power elite aren't getting about that group of people?
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, I think on the mainstream side, I do think that it's underrated the extent to which like things you can see on TikTok kind of stuff like breaking through, you might say, escaping containment. I think that for example, for a while, part of what was structuring the political response to Trump was a sense that sort of like regular people didn't so much care about all like the abuses. But if you were just to sort of spend time in social media and try to sort of like, find ways to beat the algorithms, you could see kind of a wider breadth. It was clear that like this stuff was actually circulating, that like it was the especially because it was so image heavy and so video heavy that it was really circulating amongst like more ordinary people. So I think kind of mainstream institutions miss the extent to which a lot more stuff breaks containment than we think and has an impact. I think on the TikTok side, and this gets sort of like what I think I'm trying to do on that platform and like other places, is I think that often what is lost beyond like the historical context and sort of the bringing reputable sources to internet discussions, especially of history, and engaging with academic stuff and those spaces like TikTok. I think one thing that is often missing is everyone exists in such like a frictionless environment that they forget that sort of like to make things happen, like actual human beings have to do things. They have to like take actual steps. Like a guy has to do a thing for something to happen. And in discussions of politics, especially, I think this often gets missed. And there's like no thinking about like mechanics, no thinking about logistics, no thinking about operations, no thinking about just sort of like the process by which things happen. This is like especially, relevant when talking about like elections, but like all sorts of things. No one thinks about the process. And there's this funny way in which the president's kind of obsession with the executive order, with I sign this document and a thing happens, although it doesn't necessarily happen, but that kind of performance of power is really well suited to internet spaces.
Yeah.
And so you end up getting people absorbing kind of propaganda about the performance of power and treating it as if it like reflects what's actually happening on the ground. And I feel like one of the things I'm trying to do is to just like remind people that political life doesn't happen through pressing buttons. There isn't like a button you press and a thing happens. Like there are political actors who have to either accept the legitimacy of something they're being told or not. There are people at every level, at every stage, who can or cannot exercise their own agency to act. There's a lot of stuff happening, and that those choices being made are like in the most fundamental sense, like politics. That's what politics shapes: the nature of the choices being made, the people who are making the choices, and all these sorts of things. And I'm always trying to urge people to remember this, but also to recognize that like those are things on which you can actually act and have an impact. If you are worried about elections, you can become a poll watcher or work do election work, thus making yourself one of the people who makes a choice, right? And whose agency matters all the more.
This is my biggest, this is my biggest frustration with especially the left on TikTok is like it's almost like they're like quoting a book and like the perfect, most maximalist version of things and discounting all the ways in which like we as individuals in small ways can protect the best parts of our democracy. Like it really, like, they bypass this like personal responsibility to be out there and like go into the maximalist place. So I appreciate you out there explaining these
Thank
things.
you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Jamelle,
Well, thank you so
we are
much.
so
Jamelle.
grateful. Yes, thank you so much
my
for
pleasure.
coming. We
Thank
hope
you
you'll
for
come
having
back
me.
again.
Tell
We'll be
people
happy
where
to
to find you on the internet, on the New York Times. Tell people where you are
Sure.
these days.
If you don't hate the New York Times, which if you do, that's cool too. I just work there. You can find me at New York Times Opinion. I'm on TikTok. I'm at Jamelle Bouie. I'm on YouTube. I'm also at Jamelle Bouie. And I'm on Instagram and I'm at JBouie. Instagram, I usually repost stuff from TikTok, but I also post photography. So there's that as well. And I'm on Blue Sky where I'm JamelleBouie.net. So that's basically where you can find me.
Cool. Well, we hope you come back here on The Moment soon and we'll be watching.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Bye, Jamelle.
Bye.
So nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you all as well.
Yeah, I really love seeing like he is like a unique connector between these two spaces where like there's so many people that I see on the internet on the left where I'm like, I get your ideals and they should be more part of the conversation. And yet like your execution and your way of talking about them is so like maddening. I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah. It's also, I love that he has, his foot in both worlds, right? Where multiple things can be true. You can feel multiple things about a situation. Do I love the New York Times? Absolutely not. But do I also still understand that they are a vital part of, how we get legitimate information? Yes.
Yeah.
It's all of the things true, which is what makes it a testament to what makes all of this so difficult, right? It's exactly what we've been talking about.
I guess this is like, I'm not saying something new with like purity politics, but it's like, like nobody is inherently right. Nobody is inherently perfect. It's always a moving target with new information, new things will like this, everything needs to be perfect in order for me to take it at all seriously or look at it is like, so it's so not moving us in the right direction, I think.
Yeah, and we get to those weird conversations too, where it's like, well, or maybe not so weird, but who's responsible? Is it the audience? Is it their responsibility to scrutinize, right? Or is it the responsibility of, the publications to be putting out, correct factual information? And I think the answer is obviously that it goes all directions.
Both ways. Yeah, we're all responsible for all of it. I think that's the answer is like, that's what I feel like is missing on the internet is like this lack of personal responsibility from everybody is like, we do live in a world where like you personally can be part of the things that you want to see. Like he said, poll worker. I'm like, yeah, I've been a poll worker before. I intend to be a poll worker again. It's a small way. I'm not going to fix the world by being a poll worker, but like, I believe that elections are important and like a special part of our democracy, and that they're in trouble, and I want to do that. Meredith,
And just a quick thing about poll working. So as he was saying that, I was like, okay, yes, the traditional poll worker, right? But also I loved that within my own community during the election, and also our local elections in New York, there were poll workers, like pole dancers who were raising money. I mean, there are so many ways that
there are a million ways to do it.
Exactly. It's not, yes, we need people, boots on the ground, but we also need the people who are fundraising. We also need the people who are making the calls. We do need the people who are, putting information out there. So yeah, poll workers in every sense of the word.
Every sense of the word. Meredith, what's having a moment for you?
I'll tell you what's having a moment for me. I finally decided that actually it was an impulse purchase. I was wandering. Don't cancel me. I was in Target. I needed to get. I know. It's like here's the thing. It's like, where else am I supposed to buy Tylenol?
Well, they have your full medical history now. So
anyway, I was in there and I was having a bit of a crash out. And I said to my husband, I'm buying an air fryer, very impulsively. And he was like, oh, fine. Because like that meant that he was going to have to carry it and all this kind of stuff. So anyway, we got it. And I know Rebecca doesn't have an air fryer because I already talked about this. Kari, I don't know if you have an air fryer, but like team air fryer. And my husband, who's like, you don't need another kitchen appliance, was like, the air fryer is kind of amazing. And I was like, I know, it is amazing. It cooks so quick. I feel like I'm cooking things that are so much healthier because you can make them really quickly. You can make chicken in like 15 minutes and it's completely cooked in perfection. So anyway, I have an air fryer and I'm team air fryer. And Kari, do you have an air fryer?
I do. And what I discovered is that you can make so many things in it. It's not just like the stuff that you would typically, that you're choosing to not fry in oil. Like I haven't done it, but I have seen recipes for like air fryer cakes. Are they good? I don't know, but you can do it and that's cool.
Yeah, right.
You can hard-boiled eggs with like
you can make
hard-boiled eggs in there.
Eggs?
Yeah. And it takes like
amazing.
15 minutes, depending on how. So anyway, I have given into the air fryer and
this is not a paid ad, by the way. This is not.
I was like, where's the sponsorship dollars coming from?
I know. And then also too, I looked at it once I got it home and I was like, what the fuck is this brand? And I was like, that's how I knew it was a crash out, because like there is the like part of me that like is like, well, this isn't a name brand. What the fuck? But it's getting the job.
Air fryer.
Yeah. Air fryer.
Anyway, Kari,
they're like, you can totally make boiled eggs in this.
Yeah,
don't worry.
I think the air fryer is the scammer.
Yeah, exactly.
Kari, what's having a moment for you?
Okay, so I'm a big YouTube University person, which again, going back to the, you have to scrutinize. But one of the channels that I discovered recently that I love is called Medieval Mindset. And it is this guy who goes through things that are happening in present day and compares them to things that happened in the medieval era. And so it's so interesting. Like the other day, I saw one where he was talking about how, again, comparison of the plague, right? Everybody immediately thinks COVID, but he was actually like, what I think is more like the plagues of yore is AI. And the way that AI takes over, infects everything. Ultimately, however, much like, again, unfortunately, the workers who are being replaced, it's like how during the Black Plague, I can't remember the stats, but it was like 50% of the population basically overnight disappeared, and then having to rebuild from that. But it was just, looking at things, and thank you. And ultimately,
Wow, that's so
inspiring and hopeful, because he makes these videos where he's like, okay, so this isn't actually the worst thing, because look what came out of this, the Renaissance. So what are the things that are happening that are leading us to these more progressive, compassionate trains of thought? So yeah, I'm a big fan. And it's just something where there is so much media out there. Anything that gets me to look at these types of pieces of information from a different perspective, I'm all about, and he's super entertaining.
I think that also
Shout out
gets,
Medieval
like,
Mindset.
What Jamelle was talking about of the Spanish flu and COVID. And same thing, but I'm also wondering, like, to your point with the, like, I'm thinking about like the amount of folks who are being, held at detention centers and deported. And it's kind of like, oh, all these people just like disappeared, you're saying, in the plague. And I'm like, oh, or what we're kind of seeing in, this horrible thing that's happening with ICE have, parallels to that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that I know that we're almost out of time, but I do want to say I'm often asked, how do you keep your head up during all of the chaos? What is it that you can suggest that people do? Really, it's getting out there and being in a community. And yeah, it would be amazing if that were mutual aid, if that were, again, on the ground things, but it's also book clubs. It's just spaces in which you're able to have conversations with people. I'm a huge, firm believer in that. One of the reasons that Zoran was elected is because of the success of the New York Knicks at the time.
Yes,
because
totally.
we were all, first of all, I love basketball.
You're a Knicks girly. Yeah.
I'm a Knicks girly. But you were in bars talking to people that you would never necessarily be next to in a bar, because you were all championing and, around this one amazing thing. And it brought this sense of community that hadn't been there before. And obviously, I don't think that was the reason. I think
it's no
coincidence.
Blue and orange were his color, right? Like it had
that too.
That comeback kid feeling.
Yeah. There's a lot to say about just like obviously the media literacy and how amazing they were with everything that they put out there. But I really, I had so many amazing conversations with people that I think normally would be like, oh, I don't even want to see this person. I don't want to engage with this person at all. But we connected over basketball, and then you start talking about their families, and then it just got into, discussions about the actual world. And so getting out there, just making human connection. And we're so lucky, in these metropolitan cities, especially New York, where it's like you walk outside and you are instantly a part of a community. But I really hope that everyone can just get out there and be active and know their neighbors.
Rebecca, what's having a moment for you, neighbor?
I know this is what you were saying, is like in 2019, we all had this trauma and we never like figured out how to get back into the world.
That's my special interest. And I know. Finally, well, and you know what it is partially, and now we're like, is like, I had a very chaotic childhood. So I get addicted to chaos very easily. And so when I saw COVID happening, I was like, a lot of you have never had anything chaotic happen to you in your life, and you're finally experiencing it for the first time, and you're finding out that it's horrible and it will cause stress that will last forever, but also
I felt super prepared for COVID.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't that
like losing their shit, and I was like, oh, finally the world is moving at my anxiety level.
And Dad, I'm sorry that I said I had a chaotic childhood.
I know. My dad, I was thinking that too. Like,
you were great, but like Mom did die, so that was chaotic. Like that we couldn't really help it.
This is a group of women who all had like deeply chaotic.
Yeah, exactly. So it does make you uniquely prepared for those things. And so anyway, I just think like, yes, it is. I feel like Jamelle finally gave me like the start of the answer that I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Anyway, carry on.
Oh, so mine is like a little bit on the lighter side, but I've been seeing on social media this woman, I believe her name is Soraya Bonali, and she was an Olympic skater. in
Saria
like,
Bonali.
Saria Bonali. Thank you so much. Thank
Big
you.
fan. Big fan.
Oh, okay. So there you go. I'd never heard of her before. And I heard of her because one of the figure skaters in this Olympics landed a backflip, and everybody was like, wow, it's never been done before. And all of a sudden, I heard of this woman, and I want to play her from 1992, and I want to talk about her backflip here because she did it fucking first. And do we have that clip, Fiona? Okay, what makes me crazed about that is technically at the time a backflip was illegal in figure skating because it was too dangerous. And she was already like down some points, and she was like, they're not taking me seriously, and so fuck them. And then she did the backflip, landed on one foot, was the first person to ever do it in Olympic competition. And of course got deducted points because it was illegal. And I just like, this is what social media is good for. I miss like 2013 social media win. So anyways, the woman who's been having a moment for you for this whole time is only now having a moment for me.
Well, listen, if there's one thing I know, it's a chaotic childhood. If there's two things I know, it's figure skating in the 90s. And Saria Bonali is actually a really interesting Kari, I don't know how much you know about her, but she was adopted by a white woman from an orphanage when she was little, and that woman became her coach.
Wow. Oh, interesting.
Yes. Suzanne Bonali. This is like, and I can remember even being like 8 or 9 and thinking, something feels
not
a
quite
little
right
off
here.
here.
Not great.
Yeah.
Where it's like every parent, vicariously lives through their children vicariously, right? But this one almost was selected, perhaps, for this
blind side, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to ask where she is now and what she's doing currently.
I think so. I followed her on Instagram. She's a motivational speaker. I believe she's French, and so I have to imagine French. I have to imagine she's in France still. But I feel like Meredith, you're like take away, you know more about this. I thought I was bringing something new to the table.
No. I mean, I think she was always sort of this really powerful skater too, at a time when the other sort of skaters were
princesses.
Like princesses, like a Nancy Kerrigan, or even like from other countries, like Oksana Bayul. You were sort of like skating was very very white. I mean, we did have, she came up kind of around the same time of Michelle Kwan, but Michelle Kwan was like, her type of skating was quite graceful. Yeah. And so it actually is a more similar type of skating to, like, let's say a Tanya Harding, who was an incredible skater. And that's what Saria Bonali was. Now she's adopted at 8 months old. So like, and her mom was a PE teacher. So like, I think it's sort of like all this sort of stuff that comes together. So anyway, I think we'll have to have Kari back to do a deep dive on this. But you guys know skating is one of my special interests. Particularly, I mean, here's the good thing. I think one of the things that's so great about skating now is that these young women have a lot more agency. And a lot of abuses that came out of the U.S. Figure Skating Association in particular, which Saria Bonali was skated for France, have come out. And so I hope that things are better. But the 90s were such a complicated time for figure skating, and So anyway, I'm so excited that you have discovered Saria Bonali.
Yeah, I know. Good for all of us. Kari, before we go, where can everybody find you? You are like literally everywhere, and also like 10 out of 10 recommend Kari. Like she's just 10 out of 10.
Thank you. I really appreciate
that. Tips on Like, she's just a good one, but tell us where people can find you. So
Thank you. Thank you. So really the social media that I'm the most active on is Instagram, and you can find me at Hot Dog Hand Jobs.
Which we got in the New York Times, right?
Yes, yeah. And one of the things that I loved, I was when my book came out, it was featured on the cover of the New York Times Book Review, which was such an honor, regardless of how we feel about the New York Times. But the person who took the photograph is my friend who is a professional dominatrix. So the photo credit is to Mistress Faye. And I don't know if it's the first and only time, but I'm going to say that it's the first. Talk about spreading misinformation, potential misinformation. But I think it was the first time that a professional dominatrix and sex worker had been credited for the photo. So shout out to
We
Mistress
love
Faye.
to see it.
Yeah, but you can find me at Hot Dog Hand Jobs. I'm also on Letterboxd. I have my book out, as you mentioned. Thank you so much, called You'll Never Believe Me, and you can pick that up wherever you want. Please support local bookstores if possible. And if you're crazy enough to, you can let me literally into your brain because I read my own audiobook. So if you want that vocal fry in there, you can have that. But I'm so appreciative. This was so much fun, and I learned so much. And I would absolutely love to come back to talk figure skating and air frying.
Anytime.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Bye, y'all. We'll see you guys back on Friday. We have Yesterqueers, who is a fantastic content creator.
Wait,
and
can
we
I
have
share a fun fact?
Yeah.
Kari posted on her Instagram stories a meme that Yesterqueers made after the Super Bowl. And I was like, both of our co-hosts this week are like,
become one.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I love
I
Yesterqueer.
thought that
That's
was so
incredible.
funny. I meant to tell you. Go ahead.
We
Sorry.
can't wait. We have Yesterqueers, and we will also have Tara Palmieri stopping by to talk a little bit about the Epstein files. As many people know, she has done incredible work in that reporting and talking with survivors. So anyway, we'll see you all back here on Friday. As always, make sure you follow us on YouTube. Love you so much. It hurts. Bye, guys.